This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stockbox interview. Excellent. Well, yes, it is indeed 12 o'clock. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this live Q&A on Telegram with Marc Sale, the CEO of First Class Metals, and James Knowles, the Executive Chairman. I am Mark Fairbairn from Stockbox, and I'll be hosting the session today, fielding your questions to both Marc and James. Now, we've already had a number of questions put forward, so thank you all very much for sending them in. We will start with those questions first, and then the Telegram admin, aka Kenny there, will open the floor for everyone here to ask any further questions by either typing in the group or just let us know that you would like to speak, and we'll unmute you so that you can ask your question directly. Don't hold back. The CEOs and directors are here for you today. Of course, both Marc and James are bound by the rules of the London Stock Exchange, but they will do their very best, I'm sure, to answer your questions in as much detail as they can. So first of all, let me introduce James Knowles, the Executive Chairman of First Class Metals. Hi, James. How are you doing?
Good morning, Mark. Really well, thank you. And how are you today?
Very good, thank you. Well, thank you very much for your time today. And of course, Marc Sale, the CEO, is here as well. You doing okay, Marc?
I'm good, thank you. I'm in God's country in Scotland, so I'm fine.
Oh, good. Excellent. Excellent. What I'd like to do is just start with James, just get a quick sort of update on the corporate side of things from the company's point of view. The company recently IPO'd, and I think it's been a pretty well executed IPO. Lots of information prior to IPO, and you really did hit the ground running. I think it's actually quite a good example of how to IPO a company. So I'd just like to get maybe just a few words from you, James, first of all, just a general corporate update following the IPO of First Class Metals.
Yes, certainly, Mark. As you say, it appears that we've had a fairly seamless process from the IPO in late July, the 29th of July, where we debuted on the main list in London at a valuation of just above 6.6 million sterling. Behind that, though, there was several months of intense activity to bring the company to the market, and we eventually achieved it. And we were perhaps one of the last sub £30 million companies to actually list in London post the rule change last December. So we think that was a great achievement, and to get the listing away in what was potentially particularly tricky markets at the time is all kudos to the board and our advisors and so forth. So yeah, back in late July we listed. Fairly tight share register was created. We raised 1.1 million plus a £300,000 convertible loan, converted at the point of the IPO, which funded us for our planned activity for this year and well into the 2023. So operations-wise, we have plenty of opportunity to take advantage of the decent weather through the Canadian summer. Marc implemented the exploration plan across all 6 of the 7 projects, which is still underway as we speak today. Plenty of activity across all the sites. So we kind of hit that key objective, and since we've listed, I think we've kept the market well updated with a number of key news releases, particularly across our intended activity, what we've done prior to July to the IPO, and also since the point of the IPO, particularly on West Pickle Lake, and also the activity we've seen prospecting wise and ground truthing across 6 of the 7 sites. So been an extremely busy 6-12 months for the company, which certainly hasn't stopped since the point of the IPO. From a corporate perspective, we're still looking to investigate possibilities of a Canadian listing. You probably saw the news release a few weeks ago where we appointed Carlos Espinosa to be a director of the Canadian subsidiary, which now gives us a focal point in Toronto. So yeah, it's been a busy 6 months, and we look forward to even busier 6 months coming forward. So yeah, very pleased with our activity and progress that we've made.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that update. It's nice to hear that you are well funded into 2023. And with the different sort of roles that everyone has on the board there, it sounds like you've got a good team set up there and everyone's able to concentrate on their own area. What's the general vibe, would you say, or feeling across the First Class Metals team? As the chairman, I guess you're probably responsible for the overall well-being, well-functioning of the team.
Yeah, we've got a really good setup. We speak regularly between ourselves. I think my wife actually says I speak more to Mark than what I do to her. So I'm probably on the phone a good number of hours daily, kind of discussing our plans and activities. So yeah, we're a close, collaborative team, and I think that tight dynamic allows us to put into play our actions and our objectives quite clearly and in a swift manner. So yeah, it's an efficient setup that's quite slick and lean, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've had the success we've had to date.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much. So let me now bring in Marc Sale then. Let's get a bit of an update then, Marc, on the first drilling season, the first active drilling season from the company. James did allude to there that you're working very hard on the exploration plans prior to IPO. And of course, we've now got through that first season. So what can you tell us?
Well, yes, thank you, James, and thank you, Marc, for the introduction. I think just to steal the words from James, we hit the ground running. We were fortunate to have pre-IPO funds, which meant that I could get teams out there on the ground before we actually IPO'd, and that meant that we weren't wasting part of the field season, which was late in starting this year. It didn't start till early May, but at least we were out there. And as James said, we're still out there now. I'm receiving daily reports from the guys that are still out in the field, though I think it is the beginning of the end, shall we say, in respect to they've got minus temperatures during the day, and it's not particularly pleasant, but I have push them to do one last little job for me on the ESSA block, which I think they will complete just because they're such good guys. I mean, the Emerald Geological Services, who are doing the work for us, Bruce McLaughlin, who's the president and sort of senior partner in that, let's not lose sight of the fact that in 2004, I think it was, Bruce was working with me in Landor Resources, and he was the guy that took the first, official samples of what is now their 1.5 million ounce BAM zone. So when James approached me last year to give them some technical advice and sort of head up the field side of things, I naturally gravitated back to the people I knew and trusted as part of my network, and Bruce was foremost. So he brings amazing credentials to our group, as does the rest of his team. So anyway, in essence, James is right. 6 of the 7 blocks. The one block we haven't been on this field season is Sugar Cube for various reasons. No bad reasons, I might add. Maybe I'll just get that one out of the way straight up, is that we're planning a geophysical survey over Sugar Cube, which I'm hoping is going to be next month. So that will fulfill all the assessment requirements as well as answer some exploration questions for us. Otherwise, we have focused on our flagship property, North Hemlo, and the ESSA block, which is close to it. We have covered the other 3, what I call small western claims, Magical, Enable, and Coco. And we also had a helicopter-supported exploration effort on McKellar. So yes, we have covered them all. And to slightly preempt one of the questions that I was told of about have we renewed various blocks, all our blocks are in good standing. What happens with the MLAS system is you have to submit assessment reports which contain the work you've done, credits, and you have to spend $400 on each block in order to maintain it every year. Now, we have done all the work, but we haven't submitted the assessment reports because we were unable to submit them because we haven't had all the assays back. So we've submitted interim reports and extensions. So that's why some of your astute followers who are looking at the government system and seeing that there's 30-day threat of loss to some of our claim blocks, it's because they have to tell us that. We've applied for extensions. All the claims will have more than sufficient work done on them to keep them going well into next field season. So I know I jumped ahead with that one a bit, Mark, forgive me. However, exploration has been conducted on 6 or 7, is planned for all 7 this field season. We're still exploring, and I think you could possibly take away from that the fact that we're still exploring is that we're still very enthusiastic.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that update, Mark. If we do come on to that question, I will just skip over it if we've covered it in the intro. But it's good to hear that the objectives were all completed on the first inaugural drilling season of the company, and hopefully many more to come, and some discoveries along the way.
Yep. Yes. I've got very little doubt. As I said to James privately, I'd like to find one more because 3's a trend.
Okay, excellent. Well, we can watch this space on that. So let's go to the questions now, because there are quite a few that have been submitted. And I think the best way to do it is I just pose the question. I think probably the majority of them will be relating to you, Mark. But if you feel that James is more suited to answer one of them, then just bring him in.
Yep.
So the first one I have here, on the 5th of October, the assay results from the first 12 holes Palladium 1 have drilled at Pickle Lake, and the results were outstanding. When are we expecting the other 11 back from the lab, or at least the next batch of those 11?
Okay, first of all, I think I have to make it very clear that the earn-in joint venture with Palladium 1, they manage. So we are not in control, nor are we a party to the submission of samples for analysis, nor the news flow of the results of those analysis. So we're very much at their behest in that regard. However, of course, we do work closely with Palladium 1 in order that when they do have results and they are going to put out a news release, that we're aware of it. There's been an amazing backup in the laboratories in Canada, and only recently I was in contact with Palladium 1, and they've said that they hoped that there would be something in the next week or 2. I'm not saying necessarily that's a press release. I'm not necessarily saying that that's going to be good results, but they are expecting some feedback from the laboratory imminently. So we can only watch the space, as you said, on that one, Mark. The initial results, you're right, were very good. I don't try not to use the word outstanding because I was pulled up on that once. Somebody says the results are outstanding, and they said, well, when do you expect to get them then? No, the results were very good. The next lot are outstanding. So we've got high hopes for the continued development of West Pickle Lake on our PESIM 2. And it's my understanding that Palladium 1 intend to carry on drilling till the end of the year, partly because they want to do the drilling, they're enthused, and partly because obviously they're using flow-through money which has to be expended in this calendar year. So to answer the question, we are expecting some feedback from Palladium 1 soon. We don't know when that will be exactly or what the content will be, but certainly all the signs that we're seeing, the visual appraisals of the drilling, are going to continue in the same vein as the original release that went out on whatever date it was.
Okay, so the market will know when you know then, when Palladium 1 let you know as well, presumably. So, okay.
Yes, yep.
Okay, now the next question I have, FCM are running a 4,200 kilometre line survey over the whole of Pickle Lake. What technology is this using, VTEM or TDEM, and what kind of geological information is this technology designed to uncover? And again, when are the results and modelling expected to come back?
Okay, well, there's a question later on about a 4,000 line survey over North Hemlow. So I will roll the two together because there's a little bit of confusion here. West Pickle Lake isn't big enough to have a 4,000 line kilometre survey over it for a start. But anyway, we conducted a 4,100 kilometre, low level, close spaced, high resolution magnetic survey over the whole of the North Hemlow block, which includes PESIM 2, which is where West Pickle Lake is. It wasn't a VTEM. VTEM is a proprietary name by Geotech. Other people have other prefixes, but the important bit for this question is the EM, which means electromagnetic. And if the audience aren't aware, Palladium 1 conducted a airborne EM, in their case it was VTEM, they used Geotech, over their Tycho project, which included PESIM 2. They then conducted ground EM over West Pickle Lake, and they've recently conducted downhole EM. Now, electromagnetic, basically what it means is you're trying to, by an induced electric current, trying to see the conductivity, the chargeability of what's in the ground. In other words, if you had a huge copper nickel body, you would expect it to be conductive and therefore have a very strong EM signature. There are some issues with EM, and that is because the source, the electromagnetic field, pulses on and off, you can actually miss quite a large conductive body when you fly over it because it's off for that second that you're over it. So there are problems with it. However, it's still the industry standard if you're looking for deposits with a high chargeability conductivity. We chose to do the high-res mag survey for two reasons. One, the line spacing we used was 25 and 50 meters. VTEM is 100 meters. So we got at least double the detail from our high-res mag, and the magnetics shows up structure more than chargeability. And we were at the stage that we conducted the survey or commissioned the survey feeling that structure was more important. I mean, they hadn't started the drilling at West Pickle Lake when we commissioned the survey, put it like that. We might look to use another proprietary system, not VTEM, for areas of the north of North Hemlow once the drilling results are all out and we can assess the situation. We're not ruling it out, but at the moment, I still remain confident that the survey we used was the appropriate one for North Hemlow. And by way of sort of confirmation of that, as you're aware, we acquired the VTEM data over ESSA, our ESSA block, which we had reprocessed and reinterpreted, and which we will disclose in the not too distant future, I believe. And the comment on the EM aspect of that survey was it was a very expensive way to map the lakes, because in some instances, as I say, it's superfluous. So we conducted a 4100 high-res, low-level, close-spaced magnetic survey over North Hemlow. We will consider an EM proprietary method in the north of the block in the future, as and when the West Pickle Lake material justifies that. But I would add that we are using a proprietary EM survey when we do the Sugar Cube survey later in the year. Hopefully that clears up that confusion.
Yes, I believe it probably does. So thank you for that very detailed answer there, Mark. Now, we did cover the bit of an update on the first drilling season, the first field season when we started this call. So let's not go over that again. But the next question I have is generally, were you pleased with the first field season? What was the most exciting aspect of this?
For me, the most exciting aspect was getting out there and feeling the enthusiasm from the team that's out there working for us and helping them and trying to impart a bit of my experience and knowledge to them, and just getting involved in it and just picking up the vibes and the enthusiasm. I mean, possibly that question was directed, they wanted me to say, oh, it was Enable or Magical or Sugar Cube or something. I'm excited about all of our properties, but I was really excited about being on the ground and seeing the guys at work, seeing what they were sampling and helping them with that. I think we've got an amazing team. I mean, James, notwithstanding as far as the management corporate side of things is concerned, but the people we've got on the ground and the properties we've got, it's just, I think, hey, nothing's a certainty in exploration, but as I've worked with exploration companies, small and large, in all corners of the globe, and I think we have an amazingly cohesive and competent group here with some ground that shows significant potential to deliver the goods.
Okay, and having been there and seen it then firsthand, Mark, is it safe to say that you're feeling very confident with what you've seen for the future going forward with the company and the exploration?
What I said to James early on in this, and with all due respect to James, he's not a technical person. And what I said to James is, James, don't expect telephone numbers for the first pass or the first field season. What we need is sufficient encouragement, geological and preferably geochemical, that is a no-brainer. We've got to go back and do more work. And what I'm seeing at the moment is that the work we've done is great, and we need to do more work.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much for that. So the next question I have here, what's the process from here for Sunbeam?
Okay, that's quite straightforward. The Newinsko geologist who was working on Sunbeam for them as a consultant for several years, I've asked her to write me a short executive style review of the property for the management, with her views, personal views on where it's at and where it's going forward from here. That opens the door to what will be a thorough deep dive into the historical information on Sunbeam, including all the sampling, all the drilling, etc., which Emerald will be compiling for us with the assistance of this geologist, because she's submitted all the assessment reports over the next couple of months, shall we say. Once the field season's finished and the assessment reports are written, which are a priority, we will then be initiating a detailed historical data review on Sunbeam in order to produce a road map. And if warranted, I have some other people I've worked with on various projects around the world who I would put up against anyone as far as drill interpretation is concerned. And if warranted, I will bring them in to have a look at the drilling in order that we have a real handle on where we go from here. But I think once the data review is done, Mark, there's two avenues. Obviously, there's going to be pressure on us for drilling, because it's almost drill ready, because exploration permits are in place. But really, when you commit to drilling, which is very expensive, you want to make sure you're drilling in the best places. So even if there's pressure on us, I will sort of try and offset that pressure with increasing or verifying the knowledge that we have on the property before we commit to an expensive drill program. But obviously that is the aim, if not next field season, as soon as is practically sensible.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much for that. So we have covered, as we mentioned earlier, about the claims and the renewal process there. So I can sort of skip a little bit of this next question here. It's relating to Magical. We are awaiting assay results from 12 rock and 56 soil samples there. When are they due back?
I'd like to say any time, Mark. There is a 2 to 3 month delay in the sample turnaround from the labs. They're just absolutely swamped. I mean, as you can see from the West Pickle Lake, they started drilling there in June, and we've only released one lot of assays. So it really is swamped. I can't answer that question, but as soon as we have results that we can present cohesively, and by that I mean, if we did a soil sampling program across a structure and we got back the first batch of 20, 30 samples, I would not be releasing those until we got enough samples back. I'm not necessarily saying all of them, but enough samples back so that we could actually make a comment on an informed level, not just, oh, we've got 3 samples back, 2 were good, 1 was so-so. I would like to say, yes, we've got 50 samples back, and from this we can see an anomalous trend. I don't consider those sorts of samples price sensitive, so I don't feel that there would be a statutory requirement to put those out as soon as we have them. I would like to wait until we have sufficient back, and I have very few assays back at this stage, but I would like to wait until we have sufficient back that we can build a cohesive picture and then take that to the market so they understand where we're going from, as opposed to something that try and join these dots guys, because we can't yet, because we don't have enough information. So as soon as it's sensible, as soon as we are able, we will be releasing the results, be it Magical, Enable, or wherever.
Okay, well, the next couple of questions are relating to North Hemlo and some of the samples and surveys that have been done there. Before we just go into that, though, I just want to pick up on something you said there about the labs being backed up. This is something I hear quite often when talking to mining and exploration companies. Why is that, do you think? Do you think there's not enough labs because of the years and years and years and years of a bear market in commodities? Or is it a sign of what's to come, perhaps, that there's a lot of exploration and just not enough people out there actually working in the field? Do you have an opinion on this? Because we do hear it time and time again, and it's a very frustrating point for investors to be waiting for assay results. But I'm trying to understand if it's is it a positive sign overall, or is it a result of lack of investment over many, many years?
I think both of your summations have a degree of accuracy to them, Mark. Unfortunately, exploration is a very cyclic industry, boom and bust, shall we say. So whether it's a drilling company, and there's also a drastic shortage of drill rigs, as well as personnel. So whether it's a drilling company, whether it's an assay company, whether it's geological personnel, we're boom and bust. And of course, there is this hesitancy in good times to overinvest in case the bad times are around the corner. So that is the problem. Yes, you're right, there aren't enough labs. Why? Because things have been a bear market. Why aren't they building more labs? Well, why aren't we building more power stations? We know we're going to need them. But yes, it is a case of a cyclic demand. I mean, it's the same as in boom times, people say, oh, you should study geology. And I've seen this through my career, that people go into geology, and by the time they come out 4 years later, we're in a bear market and they can't get a job. So that is the problem. You're right. It's not enough and uncertain justification, because it could all change next week. So
indeed, yeah. Maybe I should start my geology degree sooner rather than later. Then
there you go.
Ready for the boom.
Oh, the way you talk and ask questions, I thought you had one, Mark.
Oh gosh! Well, I'll take that, Mark, for sure. I'll take that. No, there's always more to learn.
Absolutely.
So let's talk just a little bit about North Hemlo here. North Hemlo, 4,000 line kilometres of VTEM done. When can we expect to hear the results of that? And just remind us what kind of information we get from a VTEM survey. Okay,
I sort of covered that before.
Yeah.
And it was a high-res mag survey. That has been completed, it's been processed, and it's been interpreted by the same people who did the ESSA work for us. And we are digesting that with the geological crew at the moment before we make any announcement on it. But it's been completed. What would we expect to get from it? I would hope that we would be able to identify structures which correspond to geological and or geochemical anomalies that weren't particularly prevalent in the field because they had vegetation cover, or the extensions went into swamps and things like that. So you imagine the situation where, let's say hypothetically the guys have found this vein marching across the countryside, and they've taken some samples on it, and it's quite encouraging. Then it just stops, and you think, oh, where's it gone? And with the result of the geophysics survey, I would hope that would indicate, yeah, it's stopped because you're on a swamp, but it actually does continue, or there's a fault offset, which you can clearly see on the magnetics there, and it does continue, but it's actually 400 meters further to your south. So that's the sort of information I would like to. It would help explain, help explain the geology and the geochemistry, or it would give us vectors to go and look for things that aren't outcropping on the surface, where we might need to do MMI soil samples or something like that.
Okay, and just sticking on North Hemlow, then 350 rock and soil samples is quite a grab from North Hemlow. They're off for analysis. Is that full assay or some other kind of analysis? And again, this person can't wait. So when?
Well, when they know, please let them. Please get them to tell me when. We do two sets of assay in effect because of the backlog. We send the samples off for gold and separately for ICP, which is multi-element. Because I think the package we use is 27 elements in it, everything from silver, copper, lead, zinc, nickel, through to some of the rare, not all, but some of the rare earth elements. And also you get percentages of sulfur and iron, so you can also sort of estimate whether there's some of the results are from eroded, weathered sulfide. So two sets of analysis, gold by fire assay, which is the more accurate, and then other elements by ICP.
Okay, thank you very much. So now this is a question regarding the First Nations. And I know we've spoken about this before, Mark, when you've been out over on site, and it's very important to get that correct with the engagement with the First Nations. But this person's asking, I was really interested to hear about the care First Class takes when working with First Nation groups. Could you put some colour on that for us? Can you give any examples of the people you've met and how the conversations have played out? It would be lovely to see a picture. Or to have a picture to sort of understand more what it means in practice.
Yeah, I'll try and put some colour into that picture, so to speak. I have had face-to-face meetings subsequent to Zoom meetings with the predominant 4 First Nation groups that have title claims over our 7 claim blocks. We have taken the approach at First Class that we wanted to approach them face to face where possible. I wasn't originally able to, obviously, with the pandemic, but I have since done that. We took the attitude that we wanted to engage them in face-to-face dialogue so that we could build up a profile with them. We're a new company. We don't have a profile full stop, or we didn't then. We're a foreign company, if you like. We're a UK company listed in the UK. So they've no background knowledge to us in Ontario. So we felt it was very important that the initial meetings were more of a kiss and tell, with all due respect, as opposed to hard business. And further to that, we felt that it was more appropriate that we met with them and discussed our exploration aspirations before they received that official document from the Crown saying, this company who you've never heard of, you've never met, it's never bothered to get in touch with you, wants to come onto your traditional area, dig some holes, do some trenching, do some drilling, cut trails to get to all those. How do you think about that? So that's an extreme sort of analogy, Mark, but hopefully you can see where we're coming from. So we took the personal approach. And as I say, I've had at least one face-to-face with the 4 bands that have traditional claims over us. At this stage, I feel happy the way things are going, or content is probably a better word, the way things are going. Certainly there's no doors being slammed. There is, as with any sort of, I use this word respectfully, tribal situation, the boundaries are blurred. So even they realize that their tribal boundaries are blurred as far as their grounds are concerned. So there is a little bit of diplomacy from our side, making sure that we don't tread on the toes of one, thinking that they have exclusive right when somebody else comes along and says, well, actually, no. I mean, one example I can give you is that the band Michipicoten, which is in the Far East, I mean, their headquarters are in Sault Ste. Marie, which is east of the Old Heart, now the Silver Lake Gold Mine. One of their band members has a trapping line on the Enable block, which is almost our most westerly claim block. So hopefully you can start to understand that it's slowly catchy monkey type thing as far as my approach, because I'm learning each time I meet with them. They're learning about me and I'm learning about them. I've met with one of the chiefs. I was to meet with a second one, but unfortunately he was called away. A very sad situation. There's quite a high incidence of suicides on some of the reservations, and there was an incident when I was over in the last time. But yes, Duncan, I hope to meet with him the next time. And one of the guys was very interested in the fact that it won't appeal to all of your audience, but one of the First Nation guys was very interested in the fact that I'm a hunter and a shooter, and wondered whether I'd be interested in going out with them sometime to do that sort of thing. And yes, I would, of course. So we're building up this relationship with them, but I would never lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, it's business. I mean, I lived in Papua New Guinea for a while, and although I was seemingly accepted by the natives in the pretty remote, savage area that I was in, I never kidded myself that I was ever going to be really accepted. You'll always be a foreigner. Hey, like me, an English person living in Scotland, you can call it home, but you're never totally accepted. So it's trying to build up a positive profile, trying to build up trust in the relationship, trying to get across the message that we care about the land as well, and we're not just there to rape and pillage the land, that we do have this ESG conscience that we want to promote. I mean, hey, forget about tribal claims, Mark. If I owned an estate in Scotland and somebody wanted to come over onto it and bulldoze trenches and dig, drill holes and put tracks in, I would be hesitant about saying yes, unless I believed that they would try their best to have a minimum environmental impact and rehabilitate whatever they could afterwards. So this is not just the First Nations concern. It's a landowner or a traditional claim owner's concern that you're going to do the right thing by the environment. So, as I say, sorry to go on about this, but it is something that's close to me, that we are trying to promote this sincere belief that we do care about the environment. And if we go onto a property and we do exploration and we don't find anything, we want to walk away from that property with a clear conscience that we have tried to minimize the environmental impact and restore whatever we can once we've left. Hopefully that puts a bit of color on the picture.
Yes, I'm sure it is. And what certainly came across was your passion for that as well. It's clear that that's very important for you to do this right. And I'm sure that the First Nations they will see that as well, because it's naturally there from you. So yeah. Thank you for explaining a little bit more about that. I'll give you a little bit of a break, Mark, because I'm maybe going to put this next question to James. So this next question is, where do FCM see themselves as a company in the future?
I think this is one we can answer quite clearly, Mark, really. We've got 8 projects which are relatively early stage. The Sunbeam one already has a discovery on it. So we see ourselves clearly to be a project developer accelerator. We've no ambitions to actually mine these projects. The plan of action is that we will develop and progress the initial discoveries we hope to make into defined economic resources. And at that stage, obviously, joint ventures, sale of individual assets will be the path forwards. With no ambitions to be miners. And I think you often see good exploration companies get ruined by becoming poor early stage miners, when we've seen that in our area. I don't know if the rest of the people on the call are aware, but there's Pure Gold recently in Ontario. They started off a fast track exploration project, took it to mining. I think they went bankrupt 2 or 3 weeks ago. Even closer to home, the Hart Sugar Zone, which is next to our Sugar Cube property, a similar situation. A fantastic, quick, very rapid discovery was took to mining, and ultimately 3 years later the company failed. I think exploration companies should focus on exploring and miners mine, and our plan certainly will be to do that. But the kind of exits are when we get these projects, hopefully in the future, to a defined resource level, we monetize it and we return the funds from that monetization to shareholders by ways of dividends or so forth. So yeah, definitely clearly exploration to the sale of exploration assets while they're still in the defined resource status, which I think from an investment perspective that makes sense for the investors. If you look at the curve of investment, the most exciting time is from initial discovery to the point where you're starting to define out a economical resource. So yeah, that's our path. We've 7 or 8 projects to take forwards, and that's what we intend on doing.
Okay, well, excellent. Thank you very much. That makes.
Could I just jump in, Mark, if I can? And as an explorationist, I agree exactly with wholeheartedly with what James is saying, and I'm certainly not trying to outstage him or anything by the comment that I'm about to make. That I think it's critical for an exploration company. A couple of things. One, not to fall in love with a project, because the rotary lie detector will always tell you the truth. But secondly, you need a conveyor belt of projects, because inevitably, look at the statistics, some of your claim blocks, some of your projects will fall by the wayside for whatever reason. So therefore, you need to keep bringing new claim areas, new projects into your portfolio, as hopefully others are taken out of your portfolio by joint venture, West Pickle Lake being one of them. So as I say, you can't just say, right, we've got these 8 blocks, we'll sit on those. You've got to think, well, chances are in a couple of field seasons' time, we might well have joint ventured 1 or 2, Ocalar, or we might have dropped 1. Sad, but it happens. So you need to keep looking for new ones. And we are constantly being approached by people offering us projects to look at, which I think is also should be taken as a compliment by First Class, that even the Ontarian people are now seeing First Class as a go-getter company. And if we were interested in their claim blocks, we would be doing something with them, not just sitting on them as real estate. So yeah, fully concur with what James says. We're explorers, and as explorers, we will keep looking at things. We will be joint venturing as appropriate, dropping, sadly, if appropriate. But there you go. Yes, conveyor belt approach.
Okay, no, thank you both for that answer. That's very clear. I think that people will appreciate the idea of the vision there of the company. It's good to get that. And you're right in saying that you shouldn't fall in love with the project, and it's a huge transition, I think, to go from an explorer to a miner. It's a huge step change, and it can work. Often it doesn't. More often than not, when it does happen, some people end up missing out, or shareholder value gets sort of damaged along the way because people with bigger pockets come along. I've seen it quite a number of times, so it's good that you've got your plan there. So thank you for sort of setting that out for us. So Mark, I have a question for you. A second question to Mark here, not including the Pickle Lake joint venture. Geologically, which project under the FCM umbrella gets you most excited?
Oh, that's a bit of a mean question.
It is, isn't it?
I won't blame you directly for that. I can't answer that question. I'm excited. I can say I'm excited about Sunbeam because it's an incongruous setting. Sunbeam, a high-grade gold mine that hasn't worked for 115 years, and it's on our property block. I mean, that's got to excite you. The fact that we've got encouragement on North Hemlow along the Dead Otter Lake trend is, I think, exciting. The shear that goes through the middle of Essa is just a beacon on the recent reprocessing and interp of the V10 we acquired. Some really nice structures come out of Enable. The sort of enigmatic contact that goes through Magical that has never really been fully explored, and then the proximity to significant deposits around Cocoa East. Hey, I'm excited. Full stop. Take your pick.
Take your pick. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Do you think the US military will fund FCM projects, and how do we apply for the funding? And I think this comes from a recent article this person's read about funding for the Canadian mining amid rivalry with China.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one, really, Mark. It's been in the press this last couple of weeks, and it's something that's come out of the US Departments of Defense, I believe, where they are looking North America holistically rather than just the USA to fund mining projects, so they can corner more of the key critical metals which the world needs as we enter the energy transition and so forth going forward. So how I believe this system works is that the US State Department are looking for perhaps more advanced near-term mining production assets at this stage, where possibly our projects are a slightly too early stage, but we'd never say never. And it's one of those situations, as it was the grant that we applied for earlier this year from the Ontario state, which we successfully won that. When these processes become clearly defined and how you access them, they'll certainly be on our radar for approach and seeing if we can be successful in that process. So yeah, I think it's too early to state process and how you physically get your hands on the money to develop your projects, but we are aware of them, and we're monitoring the situation as we would do anything that could benefit the company from an economic perspective through funding of this nature.
Silence.
Thank you. Sorry, I was on mute there. That's my mistake. Sorry, Mark, did you want to...
you there, Mark.
No. Did you want to comment, Mark, as well on that question or not?
No, I was going to make a flippant comment that each time I'm on the phone to James and we mention rare earths or battery metals, I hear a click as if the CIA or somebody's monitoring our phone calls.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, one of those situations. Okay, well, let's see. There's no doubt this area is going to get very exciting in the future, I think.
I think as well, it's perhaps, location-wise as well. All our projects are on the north shore of Lake Superior. Anybody can look at a map and you can see how close that actually physically is to the USA. I think you can drive to the US border in 14 hours on really decent 6-lane paved roads in places. So that's why the focus is on Canada from the USA. Plus, we've got deep water ports on the edge of Lake Superior, Marathon, and Thunder Bay as well. So if we do make an economic discovery, rest assured they're in the right part of the globe to participate quickly in this energy transition process.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Well, I have just a couple of questions before we can then sort of open the floor to anyone else who wants to ask a question now. This question I have here, I think either of you could answer it, maybe James more appropriate, but how important do you feel regular updates are to investors and communication. As a holder, I'm very pleased you've made the effort to connect with your shareholders, this person is asking.
Yeah, that's probably one of the key objectives we have as a company. I think clear, open transparency of communication from the company to its investors is absolutely paramount. And I think you've probably seen since we've listed, we've tried to keep a regular flow going across all media, across the Twitter account, the LinkedIn, information we put out via regulatory news releases and so forth. So yeah, it's key, and it's something that is very much a focus on a daily basis to try to keep the investors up to date. It's tricky at times trying to keep that momentum going, and there will possibly be times when we're in quieter periods. But if we can share something that's worthwhile, that adds a bit of value and gives a bit of colour to what we're doing between the regulatory news releases that we push out there, we aim to keep that going.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So I think there's just one other question that came in. I've just seen it come in on one of the groups here. So Kenny, if you want to stand by to just open up the group here on the live chat in case anyone does want to ask a question live, or if anyone is typing away, please fire away now. So the last question I have here, can James run through the mechanics of the most recent fundraising?
The convertible loan note for Sunbeam.
It must be, yeah.
Yeah, well, for Sunbeam, we did two funding structures. We did a small subscription of 80,000 sterling to two investors who were both existing supporters of the company at a 12p level with 20p warrants. That was at a 20% uplift to the IPO back in July, and I think that kind of set the stall that we're a company that's looking to develop, but we'll also need funds to do so. But if those funds are coming at ever higher levels, all good and well. So that was the subscription side of things. The second half of it, which is probably the more complex element, the convertible loan note, is for 1 million sterling, drawn down in 4 tranches at 12p, 15p, 19p and 22p off the top of my head. I'll have to check that later. But the 4 tranches can be drawn down in £250,000 lumps. The average weight of those is a 17 pence average. We can draw them down at various soft milestones, which we've set with the loan provider up to next July 2023. So the plan is we'll draw those tranches down as and when, in the case of need, as the exploration budgets and costings require going forwards into 2023. It was a bit of a novel way of approaching this. We didn't want to raise the full amount that we perhaps needed to support the Sunbeam purchase at the level the share price was at in early October. So this was a bit of a composite way of raising it at ever-increasing tranches, which are fixed. These drawdown levels at the stages I stated before are fixed and can't be changed. So it shows confidence in the company from the debt provider that they expect to hopefully see our share price going in one direction.
Okay, well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? So I do see a question has come in written in the group here. Has visible gold been collected at Sunbeam in the past, please, from the rocks on the surface?
I can't personally testify to that, but as far as I'm aware, yes, it has.
Yes, it has. Okay, excellent. Well, that's a very nice short answer. So what we'll do now is, because that covers all the questions that have been sent in, so maybe that's everyone's questions asked and addressed, but Kenny will now sort of unlock the group, so to speak, and
release the hounds.
Indeed. Unlock, yeah. And anyone who wants to ask a question live, just let us know. Oh, Kenny says raise your hand. There's an option, I think, to raise hand in the group here.
Sounds like your hound has been unleashed, James.
Yeah, I'm going to
Indeed.
go down and reprimand it in a minute. Yeah.
I mean, we are up nearly on an hour, so that's a good session. I'm just worth waiting a few seconds to see if anyone does want to ask any questions live or type anything further. Doesn't seem at the moment, so that's hopefully a good sign that we've addressed everyone's questions. So, I mean, while we're just having a few seconds there, what's maybe I'll just ask you, Mark, what's to come from now until end of the year? The drilling season, of course, is winding up, isn't it, in Canada around this time? So, I mean, what's the plans for the company going into sort of the Christmas period?
Well, I think we should differentiate between. Thank you, Mark. I think we should differentiate between field season and drilling season, because there's a lot of drilling activity in the winter in Canada, because some of the places are easier to get to when everything's frozen. For example, drilling on lakes. Once you've got I don't know what the current regulations are, but once you've got the prerequisite thickness of ice, you're allowed to drill on lakes. But obviously exploring when there's snow cover and everything's frozen, taking soil, rock chip samples, etc., is not worthwhile. The survey that we're intending to do on Sugar Cube, that will be done during the winter. So, as I say, the physical on the ground reconnaissance stops, drilling not necessarily, but I am back in Canada next month for an intensive brainstorming session with 3 of the key geologists, by which I hope that we have sufficient assays back that we can do sort of, shall we say, an end of field season review of where we're at geologically and geochemically, and then start to plan for next field season. So I'm hoping as a result of that, we will see the start of the news flow resulting from the field season's activities.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for giving us a bit of a snapshot of what's to come there. Well, like I say, I don't see anything. There's no hand. There are no other questions being typed. So I think that does take us up nicely just before an hour there. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in today for this live Q&A with Marc Sale and James Knowles. And of course, thank you very much to both of you, Marc Sale, CEO of First Class Metals, and James Knowles, the Executive Chairman, for your time today. And hopefully we can do this again in the not too distant future. But thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in.
And thank you, Mark, for being the consummate host as ever.
Okay.
Yeah, and thanks for everybody for attending and taking time out of the day to listen to myself and Mark talk about First Class. So yeah, thank you, and let's do this again soon.
Excellent. Thank you both.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.